Hey guys, tonight we're heading deep into the stinging heart of the Roman Empire. Not into a marble Senate hall or an echoing Colosseum, but straight into a howling desert where sand scalds your feet and the air tastes like copper and lightning. You're a soldier, a low-ranking auxilia, trudging across a storm-darkened plain somewhere far beyond the borders of any map you've ever seen. The sky boils with angry clouds. Something's wrong. Your legion's commander, the man who never loses a battle, has vanished. But someone, maybe that twitchy archer from Gaul, just whispered that he's sleeping in a beehive, and you, lucky listener, are the one being sent to fetch him. You probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I put a lot of weird dreams into these stories. And hey, drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is. I'd love to know which time zones are traveling with me tonight. Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that. Soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You press forward, boots dragging in the shifting sand, armor clinking against your ribs like nervous teeth. Every step is a prayer not to trip. Thunder cracks somewhere far too close. The desert storm is real, the kind that rolls in like the breath of Mars himself. But what chills your spine more than lightning is this creeping sense of absence. Where is General Varro? You followed him into war zones that made grown men weep, marched after him through snake-infested marshes, survived heatstroke drills, endured lectures about the battle strategies of bees. Yes, bees. He talks about them more than Jupiter. You always thought it was a metaphor. Then again, he does paint his face with ashes and wear an amulet made from wasp wax. The storm crests above a ridge, and you see it. Not a tent, not a Roman villa, but a squat circular stone structure like a fat little oven half buried in sand. Your fellow soldiers call it the hive. They say it buzzes when no one's inside, that it hums even in winter. Lightning flashes. There it is again. You step closer, every nerve in your body screaming that this is a terrible idea, that no commanding officer should ever live like this. But the closer you get, the more the buzzing becomes unmistakable. Low, reverent, like a distant choir made entirely of wings. You duck into the entryway. The air inside is thick, warm, almost syrupy. You cough and blink as your eyes adjust. There are bees, hundreds of them, no stings. Just tiny golden bodies moving calmly, rhythmically, across the walls, the ceiling, the general's armor, neatly stacked in the corner. No sword, no shield. Just him, Varro. He's lying in the center of the hive on a bed of woven reeds, his body wrapped in what looks like linen dipped in honey. His chest rises and falls in deep, deliberate breaths. One bee is perched right on his eyelid, unmoving. His face is smooth, peaceful. You realize you've never actually seen him sleep. You don't dare speak. Instead, you shift your weight and the floor creaks. Slowly, like a man waking from a 100-year dream, Varro opens his eyes. They're not ready, he says quietly. The bees say not yet. You blink. Sir? He sits up, brushing off a few stragglers with the gentleness of a priest handling relics. The storm is a lie. Let it pass. You look outside. The storm, very much not a lie. Sand is flying sideways. But he stands and stretches like someone who just woke from a nap in paradise. The bees follow him as he walks, forming a sort of lazy halo around his shoulders. Why do you sleep here, General? You ask, regretting the question immediately. Varro looks at you. You sleep in tents. I sleep with truth. You nod like that means anything at all. On the way back to camp, the wind does something strange. It curves around him. He walks barefoot, and where his feet touch the ground, the sand flattens, as if pressed by some invisible force. You can't help but notice. The bees stay with him the whole way. By the time you reach the perimeter, your fellow soldiers are staring, weapons lowered, mouths agape. One of them whispers, "He was inside that thing, and you can't quite explain it, but..." The storm really does seem weaker now, like it changed its mind. Later that night, around the campfire, no one talks about the storm. They talk about Varro. They say he doesn't bleed when cut, that he once tamed a swarm of hornets to sting an enemy commander mid-negotiation, that his beard is laced with pollen, and if you smell it, you dream of things that haven't happened. Yet one centurion claims that Varro speaks a forgotten dialect of Latin, reserved for insect gods. Another says he keeps scrolls written by bees themselves, tiny markings visible only under moonlight, said to contain the secrets of perfect warfare. You laugh, but a little too loudly, because you were in that hive. You saw him wake like a man communing with something far older than Rome, and now you can't stop hearing the hum, not in your ears, somewhere deeper, in your teeth. By morning, the camp is transformed. Soldiers who once bragged loudly about their scars now whisper as they pass you. They look at you differently, like you've touched something divine, or unclean, depends on who you ask. Either way, the story spreads fast. You walked into the beehive. You came out of it, and General Gaius Petronius Varro, he's polishing his sandals like nothing happened. Barefoot, of course. The sun rises hard and hot. Your unit marches again, north now toward the hills. You're not told why, no one ever is. Orders flow from Varro like wind from a canyon. Silent, unseen, but somehow always present. You get a better look at him now. It's strange. He's not what you'd expect of a legendary general. No broad speeches, no golden armor. Just a lean frame, sun-browned skin, and a face carved in concentration. His eyes flick constantly, measuring, calculating, probably memorizing the exact tilt of every blade of grass. He walks ahead of the column, alone, still barefoot. Someone asks, how'd he even become general? Good question. See, Varro wasn't. Born in the mud like most of you. He came from Rome, not just the city, but the center of it. The Forum, son of a senator, educated in rhetoric, philosophy, statecraft, groomed for the Curia. His handwriting is so neat it could pass for etchings. But, and here's where it gets interesting, he turned all of that down. Every appointment, every sinecure. Walked away from the inheritance. According to Barrack's lore, he refused a position as aquaeater because pipes don't bleed, whatever that means. Instead, he left Rome, just vanished. Next time he appeared, he was in Nubia, arm-wrestling mercenaries and riding crocodiles for sport. One soldier swears Varro once disappeared into the desert with nothing but a goatskin and came back with 5 teeth missing and a leopard trailing him like a puppy. Historians still argue whether this was a psychological break or a spiritual awakening. One scholar called him Rome's barefoot thunder. Another called him a philosopher with too many scars. But all you know is this. When Varro fights, he doesn't just win. He rearranges the board. One battle, he pretended to retreat, led the enemy into a canyon. What they didn't know? He'd already dammed the river upstream, flooded the pass, no survivors. And that's not the weirdest story. There's one about a temple in Cappadocia. Not Roman, older, pre-Roman even. Varro allegedly spent 6 days inside. Came out with yellow powder smeared on his cheeks and a new tattoo. A hexagon, with a tiny stylized insect in the center. He's never explained it, never even acknowledged it. But you've seen him touch it when he's deep in thought, right, above his heart, under the collarbone. He never fights with a standard gladius. Uses a curved blade, more like a sickle. Says straight lines are for fools. And he's obsessed with circles. Draws them in the dirt before every skirmish. Small ones, big ones. Once, he made you all walk in concentric rings for an hour to confuse the sky. And somehow it worked. That day, no scouts were spotted, no birds flew overhead. The battle went smoother than any you've fought since. Now, as you march, he starts humming. A low drone, almost musical. The same tone he used in the hive. Do you hear that? He says suddenly, to no one in particular. The men glance around. Nothing but the wind. Varro stops, places a hand on the ground, waits, then he points east. 3 riders, 1 wounded, not enemies. You wait. 10 minutes later, 3 figures appear on the ridge, deserters from another unit, frostbitten. One bleeding from the thigh, exactly as predicted. How? You don't ask anymore, you're too tired. And honestly, if he said the bees told him, you'd probably believe it. That night, as you rub ointment into your cracked heels and chew on stale olives, someone mutters, "He's not even human." Another replies, "He's not supposed to." You shift on your bedroll. You keep thinking of his eyes, calm, alert, ancient. Like someone who's seen too much of the same thing and decided to do everything backward just to feel alive again. Then someone tells a story, quietly, like a lullaby. Apparently, back in Sicily, Varro once stopped an execution because a moth landed on the condemned man's nose. "The gods have voted," he said, and they blink slowly. What does that even mean? You ask a grizzled veteran, a guy missing half an ear, what he thinks of Varro. He squints at the firelight. Saw him once stare down a lion. No sword, no shield, just stared. And the lion walked away. He pauses. "I don't think he's fearless. I think he knows something. Something we've forgotten." You nod like you understand, even though you don't. But as the stars rise and the night insects sing, you find your hand drifting toward your own chest, as if to check for a hexagon, just in case. Section 3, you wake before dawn, blinking grit from your eyes, the air cool and thick with mist. Varro's already up, standing perfectly still on a rock just outside the camp. No armor, just his tunic, damp with dew. He's holding a tiny clay bowl in one hand. You squint harder. The bowl is full of honey. He dips 2 fingers in and daubs a streak across each temple. Then he smears a line across the middle of his tongue and swallows. Calm, ritualistic. It's like watching someone commune. With an altar only he can see, no one interrupts. You just watch. Varro turns to face the camp and says softly, "Mount up, today is not war, it's warning." You saddle your horse with fumbling fingers. The wind is rising. The unit moves at a steady pace. No drums, no standards, just the sound of leather creaking, hooves muffled in morning fog, and that buzz again. Low and strange, not coming from bees now, but from inside your helmet. You try to ignore it. Within an hour, you reach the ruins. It's a crumbled frontier settlement, stone, and timber fused into half walls by fire. There's no smell of death, just silence, too much of it. No birds, no flies. Just one wide path burned into the earth like a lightning strike. Varro stops in front of a collapsed watchtower. He crouches, runs his hand along the charred ground, and then presses a piece of the blackened wood to his nose. "They didn't come through the gate," he murmurs. You exchange glances with your comrades. No one spoke about a gate. Varro stands. The attack came up from beneath. You look down, dirt, grass, a few stones. Then he draws a circle in the ash, 6-pointed, one symbol in each wedge. You don't recognize any of them. This settlement sat on an old vein, he says. They dug deep and the ground remembered. Someone scoffs behind you. "Sir, with respect, are we talking about bandits or angry dirt?" Varro turns. Slowly. "I'm talking about intention. The earth has diddy, so do bees, so do fires that burn backwards. That shuts everyone up." Then he walks forward, straight into the ruins. You follow, partly because it's protocol, partly because you're afraid not to. Each step kicks up flakes of ash, as if the fire never fully died. You find no bodies, just scorch marks and strange scratches in the stone, like something dragged across it, something heavy and wet. You find a child's toy, wooden, bee-shaped, charred but intact. Varro picks it up and pockets it. He doesn't speak for the rest of the hour. Back at the edge of the ruins, the fog has lifted. You look east and see the hills shimmering under the rising sun. Birds begin to chirp again. Whatever did this, Varro says, will wait now. It knows I'm here. You start to ask who it is, but he's already walking. That night, Varro sits alone by the fire, working with wax and twine. You sneak closer, pretending to adjust your gear. He's building something, a tiny model hive, shaped not like the ones in nature, but like the one you saw in the desert. Geometric, symmetrical, intentional. You ever wonder, he says without looking up, why the gods gave bees venom and gold? You stammer something. About balance. Varro nods. Exactly, and venom hurts but gold changes things. People forget that. They take honey and ignore the sting. Or worse, they try to make the hive serve them instead of the other way around. You don't follow, so... He chuckles. The Romans built roads, bees build worlds. The fire pops. Then he leans in, lowering his voice. You ever hear about the beekeeper general? You shake your head. Late Republic. Maybe a myth, maybe not. Old scrolls say he raised a unit trained with venom, stingers hidden in gloves, honey dosed with poppy milk. His enemies didn't just die, they wandered. Into rivers, into flames. Said he whispered to hives and made them swarm in patterns. Historians still argue whether he ever existed, or if he was just a cautionary tale wrapped in wax. He finishes the model and sets it on a flat stone. The bees, yes, real bees, crawl out of his sleeve and begin exploring it, as if inspecting blueprints. You glance at the others. They're pretending not to see. Someone starts humming again, the same tone Varro used earlier. You recognize it now. The pitch is almost identical to the hive's hum. When you close your eyes, you feel it in your ribs. You lie down that night, buzzing in your skull and dream of being buried in golden combs. Not trapped, just held. Warm, sticky, safe. You wake up sweating. Dawn creeps in slowly, smearing soft pink across the sky like honey on warm bread. You stretch your aching legs, but the buzz inside your head hasn't stopped. It's subtle now. Less of a hum, more like a vibration running beneath the skin. Like something alive has curled up inside your chest and decided to nap there. The rest of the men stir. Camp is broken with minimal fuss. No one asks questions anymore. Not since the ruins. Not since the bees started landing on Varro's hands like he was made of nectar. You ride south today, skirting the edge of a dry ravine. It's unfamiliar territory. Your map says nothing about this path. Then again, Varro doesn't need maps, Adiwai. Midday, he calls for a halt. There's a small rise ahead, crowned by an outcrop of black stone. It looks melted, twisted into spirals like it once flowed. Varro climbs it barefoot, pausing only to pluck a small blue flower growing from the rock. He holds it to the sun. Only blooms once every 100 years, he says casually. Bee-guided seeds. Took a century to grow here. You blink. How do you know that? He doesn't answer. He tucks the flower behind his ear. The men look exhausted. One asks, "What are we looking for?" Varro answers without looking back. Evidence of sleep. Okay, that's unhelpfully cryptic. He kneels and brushes aside the gravel. Beneath it, wax. Hardened, ancient, the size of a shield. He runs his finger across its surface. The bees were here, long ago, and they built something. You lean in. There are tiny carvings in the wax, more symbols. The same hexagons and spiral marks you saw in the ruins. One soldier mutters, "He's following them." You're about to agree when Varro says, "No, they're following me." And with that he stands, wipes his hands, and points to the far side of the ravine. You see it, 3 mounds, hive-shaped, half-collapsed, overgrown with thorn bush and dried vines. The unit moves out. When you reach the hives, it's clear they're not natural. These are man-made, large enough to fit 10 people inside each. The entrances are arched, and around the edges, beeswax has fossilized into patterns that shimmer like bronze. You enter the first one cautiously. Inside, it's cool and silent. The walls glisten faintly, even without torchlight. And in the center lies a low stone platform. Atop it, a skeleton, curled into a fetal position, draped in ceremonial armor that looks more Greek than Roman. Its chest bears a familiar hexagon, engraved, not tattooed. You breathe out slowly. Varro kneels beside it and pulls something from beneath the bones, a scroll case. Intact. He opens it with the gentleness of a librarian. Inside, parchment stiff and yellowed, but the ink still clings. Symbols, circles, tiny diagrams of human anatomy, overlaid with bee wings and honeycombs. One soldier swears, under his breath. He's not a general, he's a priest. Varro smiles faintly. Close. The distinction is artificial. You explore the second hive. This one has no body, just shards of broken pottery and a pile of brittle feathers. There's also a faint scent of clove. You can't explain why, but it makes your eyes sting. The third hive has collapsed on one side, but enough remains to see what it used to be. A place of rest. You find sleeping mats still intact, traces of wax and linen folded neatly, and tucked in one corner, a beeswax tablet etched with names. None of them Roman. Some say these were outposts, Varro explains quietly. Others say sanctuaries, places where the soul could quiet itself, shaped by drone song and the rhythm of honey. Historians still argue whether these were religious sites or biological experiments. You don't know what to say. Every step into Varro's world feels like sinking further into someone else's dream. As night falls, you help set camp near the hives. Varro instructs each man to place a drop of honey on his tongue before sleep. Some refuse. Most don't. You do it too. It's strangely comforting, like drinking a memory. You lie down and stare at the stars, and then you hear them. The bees. Not many, just a few, circling above your camp like they're checking in. Their buzzing is melodic now. You try to hum it back. Varro nods approvingly. He sits in front of the largest hive, eyes closed, bees resting on his shoulders, hands pressed flat to the ground. He hums, and the ground answers, a low thrum that moves through your bones like a drum beat from the center of the earth. That night, your dreams are filled with amber light and hexagons that float like lanterns. A voice, maybe Varro's, maybe your own, whispers something in Latin you don't understand but believe. You wake at peace and terrified. You're getting used to the sound now, that ever-present hum. It's not even external anymore, it's like a second heartbeat, a little offbeat, a little golden. You pack up camp silently. Everyone does. No one asks where you're going next. They just follow. Varro leads you toward the mountains, low, craggy ridges known to locals as the Ash Teeth. Nothing grows here. The soil is gray and lifeless, like it remembers being burned. Yet, every so often Varro pauses to inspect tiny flowers poking through the stone, always yellow, always six-petaled. They only bloom where the old queens were buried, he murmurs. You're about to ask what that means, when he adds, not bee queens, the other kind. Right. That helps. Midday. Heat rises like a wave. Sweat rolls down your back beneath the armor, pooling at your waist. Bees still hover near Varro, now in small, disciplined groups. Scouts, maybe, or messengers. One lands on your gauntlet and doesn't sting. Just sits there, watching. Then, suddenly, Varro halts. You almost run into him. He's staring at a stone wall ahead. Unremarkable, until you realize there's a shape, vague but deliberate, carved into it. A shallow relief of a sleeping man inside a hive-shaped chamber. His body is curled, peaceful, surrounded by what look like bees. But they're too large, too elongated. Another beehive tomb, Varro says softly. These are the oldest kind. You ask, tomb of who? Varro smiles like someone who knows the answer will hurt. They didn't bury people in them. They made people into them. That shuts you up. He presses his palm against the stone. Nothing happens. Then he starts to hum. Same note as always. This time, the stone responds. You feel a vibration. Not an earthquake, not shaking, just resonance. Like the stone has decided to breathe for the first time in centuries. A narrow slit opens beside the carving. Varro steps inside. You follow, of course. What else are you going to do? Go back to your predictable life of taxes, sand, and boiled lentils. The passage is smooth and curved, like it was melted rather than carved. It spirals inward, a slow corkscrew into the rock. The air grows colder. The hum grows louder. At the center is a chamber lit from above by a narrow shaft of sunlight. It glints off the walls, wax-polished and gleaming like bronze. In the center, a pedestal. On it, a helmet, Not Roman, not Greek. Closer to Etruscan, but too fluid. The design isn't ornamental, it's organic. Honeycomb ridges, feathered fins, and a crown of hardened antennae across the brow. Varro kneels before it. It belonged to the first sleeper, he whispers, the man who let the bees in. You swallow, like in his body? Historians still argue whether he was possessed, transformed, or just chosen. He doesn't explain further. You glance around. The chamber's acoustics are strange. Your footsteps echo before you take them, like the room's anticipating your next move. Varro places the helmet in his lap and begins to chant. Not Latin, not Greek. It sounds older, maybe not even human. Bees emerge from somewhere. You don't see them come in, but they're here now, forming slow, deliberate spirals in the air above his head. Not random flight, patterned, meaningful. Like they're reading him. One lands on your cheek. You freeze. It gently presses its head against your skin. Then it leaves. What did it just do? You whisper. Memory transfer, Varro replies, still chanting. Very common among the older swarms. You nod like that's a thing you already knew. He places the helmet on the ground and stands. The humming stops. The bees vanish into cracks you hadn't noticed before. Then Varro looks at you and says something chilling. I need you to watch me sleep. You blink. I'm sorry, what? He repeats it. I'm going into the wax for 3 days. It's a test. The hive won't accept me unless I prove stillness. Your mind races. You want me to just stand here while you hibernate? No, he says, already stepping toward a shallow alcove in the chamber wall. I want you to guard the silence. He climbs into the niche and curls into himself like the figure on the outer carving. Then he hums once. From somewhere above, a golden stream of melted wax begins to drip. Not fast, but steady. It pools around his body, coating him slowly. You panic. Are you going to? Varro, are you dying? No, he murmurs through the wax. I'm listening. Within minutes, he's coated to the chest. Then the neck. Then, just before the wax covers his mouth, he says, You'll know if something comes. And then he's gone. Just you, a whispering tomb and the low buzz of whatever lives in the walls. The first hour is quiet, peaceful even. The second hour, your ears start playing tricks. You hear footsteps behind you. Turn, and there's no one. You hear a voice humming, only to realize it's you. By the third hour, your torch goes out. You're plunged into a darkness so complete, your eyes invent colors just to cope. The hum becomes a roar. You press your hands over your ears. Doesn't. Help then, quiet, too quiet. And in that stillness you hear it, footsteps not yours, not Varro's. Something else has entered the tomb. You don't move, you barely breathe. The footsteps echo, but not in any normal pattern, too slow, too light, almost timid. They pause every few seconds, as if whoever or whatever is walking is unsure of its own existence. Your heart pounds. Against your ribs, loud enough you wonder if it's giving you away. The footsteps grow closer. You try to speak, to whisper a challenge, who's there? But your mouth is dry, your tongue stuck to the roof of your mouth like someone coated it in wax. A faint shape becomes visible. At first you think it's just a trick of the low light filtering through the ceiling shaft. But no, there's definitely something. A figure, thin, tall, slightly hunched, draped in what might be robes or maybe a cocoon. It doesn't glow, it absorbs glow. You grip your sword, slowly draw it. No noise, just breath and buzzing. The figure steps into the shaft of faint gold light. And you see it, not a soldier, not a priest. A woman, ancient, wrinkled like the pages of a fire-scorched book. Her face is tattooed in hexagons stretching across her jaw and brow. Her eyes are solid amber, no whites at all. She tilts her head not in surprise, but in recognition. I thought you'd be louder, she says. You blink. She speaks Latin, but old Latin, rusty, fused with something older. She circles you slowly, inspecting. You're the one he chose, she murmurs. The guardian, the unslept. You whisper, "Who are you?" She ignores the question. "He called them again, didn't he? The bees." You nod slowly. "They only come for one thing." You ask what that is. She smiles sadly. The end of forgetting. She walks to Varro's wax-cocooned body. Doesn't touch it. Just stands there, eyes closed. You stay tense, your hand still on the sword hilt. Historians still argue whether the cult of bee sleepers was a splinter from the Vestal orders, or something far older, perhaps even a remnant of the Minoan priest kings. She turns to you, suddenly. "But we know better, don't we?" She crouches, placing both hands on the floor. Hums a note, low, trembling. The chamber hums back. The wax glows softly. "You've stood still," she says. "Now you move." Before you can stop her, she presses a waxen seal onto your chest. It burns, but not painfully, just thoroughly. You gasp as something floods into your bloodstream. Warmth, sharpness, and the sensation of 10,000 thoughts entering your head at once. You fall or you float. You're not in the tomb anymore, you're inside something. A memory, maybe. A dream. The world is golden and blurred around the edges. You stand in a vast city made of wax and light. Its towers hum with bees. Its streets pulse gently underfoot. Figures move past you, tall and serene, clothed in robes that glint like honey under the sun. None speak. None need to. This is Rome. No, not your Rome. Something before it. A foundation under the foundation. You see children with bees crawling over their arms, laughing. You see men dipping scrolls into nectar to sweeten the knowledge. You see a ceremony. A warrior lying down in a beehive as figures around him hum in perfect harmony. Slowly, the wax rises around him, sealing him in. Not to die, but to remember. You watch this figure, his face eerily familiar, sink into the wax. And just before he disappears, his eyes open and lock onto yours. They are your eyes. You jolt awake. Back in the tomb, your skin cold, your chest damp with sweat or wax. The old woman is gone. Varro is still sleeping. Except the wax is melting, faster now. You kneel beside him as the final layer sloughs off. His eyelids flutter, then open. Golden irises, bee pupil centers, calm. "I dreamed of the beginning," you say softly. Varro smiles. That's the only place to start. The next day he walks differently. He's lighter, as if the stone in his chest has been replaced with air. The bees don't follow him now, they orbit him. Like moons around a planet, you travel west toward the ruins of an old aqueduct system no one uses anymore. Your boots crunch over cracked stone, sun-bleached and twisted with vines. Varro hums as he walks, always the same 3 notes. They seem to unlock paths in the land. Flowers bloom where his feet pass. You stop being surprised. You ask, "What's next?" He gestures ahead. We find the other sleepers. Apparently there were 9. Some never returned. Some never left their hives. You ask him what he learned while sleeping. Varro touches his temple. "I remembered who I was, who I chose to forget. And who is that?" He shrugs. "A messenger, a sacrifice, a warning." You look sideways at him. "Not a general?" He smiles faintly. "Titles are for men who want to be remembered. I'd rather be understood." And then without warning, he stops and presses both palms against a slab of fallen marble. It rumbles. From beneath the stone, a faint buzzing begins to rise, louder, clearer, angrier. "Time to meet an old friend," he says, backing up. And that's when the stone splits open, and a hand covered in wax reaches out. You stare at the hand, motionless, wax-crusted, but unmistakably human. Veins still visible beneath the amber layer, fingers curled as if gripping something long gone. You don't move. Neither does Varro. For a moment, everything around you holds its breath. Then the fingers twitch. The wax cracks, and with a slow, deliberate push, the hand rises, followed by an arm, a shoulder, then a head. A man emerges, eyes closed, coated in decades, maybe centuries of hardened resin. His hair is matted, his armor fossilized into his skin. Yet somehow, he breathes. You whisper, "Who is he?" Varro doesn't answer immediately. He approaches, the sleeper, and hums a low, warbling note, one you haven't heard before. It makes your ribs ache. The wax man's eyes flutter open. They are pitch black, not inky or shadowed, pure void, as if whatever soul once lived there left and took the light with it. This was Gaius Fulman, Varro says quietly. One of the 9. You murmur, "He doesn't look stable." Varro nods grimly. He isn't. You're about to ask what exactly that means when Fulman suddenly screams. No sound escapes his mouth. Instead, the bees, dozens of them, burst from his throat. You stagger back as the air fills with frenzied, shimmering wings. Fulman falls to his knees, choking on swarms pouring from his chest like reverse smoke. Varro doesn't flinch. His hive went rogue. You yell, "And you brought me here why? To learn." Another scream, not from Fulman this time, but from inside the pit. A second hand appears, then a third. You grip your sword. How many of them are in there? Varro draws his own blade, golden, serrated, more ceremonial than lethal. He hums again, this time a different note. It silences the buzzing, for now. Only 2, he says. The others won't wake, not after what happened in Delphi. You nod slowly, like that helps. The second figure rises. A woman this time, tall, pale, her jaw fused shut with wax strands. Her eyes blink slowly, one at a time. She doesn't speak. You're struck by a thought that doesn't feel like your own. These people were never meant to wake at all. You help Fulman walk. Well, help is generous. He lurches, drags, and occasionally levitates a few inches without noticing. The bees in his body haven't coordinated yet. One leg moves too fast. One eye twitches independently. He was our best strategist, Varro murmurs. You glance over. At what? Vomiting bees? No, at listening. Fulman hums a note, not the same one as Varro's. It's deeper, coarser, fractured. It makes your skin feel damp. The air around you shimmers like it wants to ripple open and show you another layer. What did he listen to? The future, Varro says, dead serious. You think he's joking until he adds, but he couldn't handle what he heard. That's why he sealed himself without guidance. Historians still argue whether the bee sleepers were seeking enlightenment or simply fleeing the world they knew. Some believe they were running from prophecy. Others think they were the prophecy. You don't ask Fulman anything. His tongue is made of wax now. Instead, you walk west again, deeper into abandoned Roman territory, toward a collapsed watchtower that Varro claims was once a beacon for the hive. As you approach, something strange happens. The air becomes thicker. Not humid, just dense. Sound mutes, even your thoughts slow. You realize there are no birds here, no wind, no life. Just hush. Varro slows his pace. We're here. You look around. Where's the hive? He smiles. You're standing on it. You glance down. The stone beneath your feet is not stone. It's wax, hardened, sculpted into the image of ancient Roman pavement. A perfect imitation. You stamp your heel and it echoes. Fulman hums again. The ground ripples, then it opens. Down you go, again. This time it's not stairs. It's sliding. The tunnel curves down like the throat of some impossible beast. You slide for a full minute, bees streaking past you like sparks. You land on your feet, barely. You're in another chamber. But this one is alive. The walls pulse, gently expanding and contracting like lungs. Light glows from the ceiling, but there's no torch or shaft, just ambient warmth, like honey warmed by sun. You hear something breathing, then speaking in Latin, perfect Latin. A woman's voice, aged yet clear. Another soldier, another wanderer. You and Varro freeze. Fulman kneels immediately, his body moving on instinct. The woman steps forward from a wax archway. She's tall, thin, robed in black threads that drip golden beads. Her face is mask-like, but not dead. Still, her smile is too still, too measured. I've waited, she says, and still you come unprepared. Varro bows. High Queen Appiana, I bring what remains. She looks at you. No, through you. Then she closes her eyes. This one is curious. You try to speak, but the air in your lungs crystallizes. You cough. Bees fly out. You drop to your knees in horror, gasping, slapping your mouth. Varro rushes to you, his expression unreadable. She's testing you, he says. For what? Appiana answers. To see what memories you've stolen or suppressed. You wheeze. I didn't steal anything. She nods. That's what the last one said, before he remembered. Varro explains gently that Appiana is the eldest sleeper. She never left the hive. She became part of it, conscious, alive, woven into the memory fabric of 10,000 years. They call her the crown of remembrance. Why wake now, you ask? Still shaking, she tilts her head. Because someone's trying to burn the hives. Your breath catches. Who? No one alive, she says. That's what makes it difficult. Her robe splits, not torn, divides, like silk responding to command. Beneath it is a swarm, dense, controlled, quiet. They form letters in the Latin words that flicker like firelight. One word repeats alarum. You ask what it means. It means the sleepers are no longer safe, she whispers. And Rome, your Rome, doesn't even know it's standing on borrowed time. The room. Then she says the words you'll never forget. Tonight you sleep in the hive. You hesitate. You've fought in battles. You've camped in swamps, marched through deserts, and slept under siege engines creaking above your head. But nothing has ever terrified you quite like the words, tonight, you sleep in the hive. You turn to Varro, hoping for reassurance. He doesn't give it. Instead, he nods slowly and says, it's the only way forward now. They lead you down a corridor carved entirely from hardened wax. The walls shimmer slightly, as if breathing. You brush a fingertip along one curve, warm, pliant, almost skin-like. There's no dust, no cobwebs. This place is lived in, though. You haven't seen another soul. Bees hum nearby, not frantically but rhythmically, like monks chanting in a hidden monastery. You realize the sound's not just buzzing, it's structured, musical. It's how the hive dreams, Varro says, seeing the question forming in your eyes. Appiana leads you to a chamber filled with soft amber light. It's perfectly circular. The floor covered in wax honeycombs the size of dinner plates. Some are empty, others ripple with golden liquid. In the center, a depression shaped like a human form, one you now recognize, yours. Lie down, Appiana says. You step forward, shoes sticking lightly to the warm floor. As you ease into the wax mold, a strange calm descends. The moment your back touches the surface, your breathing slows, your limbs become heavy. The walls begin to hum in unison with your pulse, and then you fall inward. No sensations, no weight, just space. Golden, endless space filled with fragments, memories but not yours. A boy fleeing a burning library with scrolls tied to his chest. A woman standing on a rooftop in Carthage, painting hexagons on her cheeks as the city falls below her. A soldier, whispering lullabies to bees nesting in his shield. Each one flies past you like pollen in the wind. You try to focus, try to remember your own life, but it keeps slipping away. Even your name. You reach for something stable, anything. And then you see yourself, but not quite. It's you, younger, cleaner armor. A slight smile. You're kneeling before a wax sarcophagus, tears in your eyes, whispering something in a language you don't recognize but understand perfectly. You say, I won't forget you, I won't. The vision vanishes. The chamber responds. The hum shifts tone, now sadder, slower. Varro's voice echoes faintly in your mind. The hive doesn't just store memory, it filters it. You ask aloud, what are you filtering me for? The answer comes not in words, but a sudden, visceral image. Rome, burning. Not with fire, but with light. Golden light, swarming over rooftops, turning citizens to wax statues. The Senate melting, the Tiber boiling, the hive above watching. and someone, cloaked in darkness, conducting it all with a silent hum. You jolt awake, you're back in the chamber. But time has passed. Appiana is gone. Fullman lies collapsed in the corner, bees crawling over his face like medics. Vero sits beside you, eyes closed. "Good morning," he says without opening them. You groan. That was not a nap. He grins. You remembered something. You sit up slowly, your back creaking. "I saw me swearing not to forget, but I don't know who." Vero nods solemnly. "You saw your former self." You blink. "I've lived this before?" He shrugs. "Not exactly. The hive doesn't work linearly. Time bends inside it. Sometimes you glimpse lives you could have lived." You shake your head. "This isn't philosophy anymore, is it?" "No," Vero says. "It's war." The next day, you travel north, along forgotten Roman aqueducts swallowed by forest. Vero leads, humming. You follow, your skin still tingling with hive residue. Fullman lurches behind like a marionette, mumbling fractured names from 1,000 years ago. At night, you make camp beneath the ruins of an old signal tower. Vero pulls out a scroll, wax-sealed, ancient, and spreads it between the three of you. It's not a map. It's a timeline. But one that loops and forks like a tree root system. Every sleeper has a branch, he says, tracing one with his finger. But something started burning them from the outside in. You point at the black mark scarring several lines. "What's doing that?" He doesn't answer. Instead, Fullman whispers, "The unhum." You freeze. "The what?" Fullman grins, and for a moment it's not his grin. It belongs to something older, colder. They were here before memory. He hisses. "They fed on forgetting, on the gaps." You stare at Vero. He finally speaks. "The hive protects memory, but when memory is strong, it casts shadows. The unhum live in those shadows." Historians still argue, he adds, whether the idea of collective memory is metaphor, or if things like the unhum are real entities that predate even myth. You believe it now. You've seen too much, felt too much. That night, you don't sleep. Not from fear, from clarity. You realize your journey isn't about helping Vero, or even saving Rome. It's about remembering why you chose to forget in the first place. Because you saw what was coming and you couldn't stop it, but now, maybe you can. You don't eat the next morning. Not because there's no food. Vero hands you a loaf and a fig with an almost ceremonial air. But your mouth feels wrong. Heavy. As if the hive still lingers there, making decisions about what gets swallowed and what stays behind. Fullman eats, sort of. He opens his mouth and lets bees carry tiny crumbs inside like priests feeding a waxen god. You don't watch for long. Instead, you stare at the wax map. Not just a map now, it's pulsing. Softly, like a dying ember. Something's moving, Vero says, tapping the darkened roots. Toward Gallia. You narrow your eyes. Why Gallia? Looks up. Because there's one more sleeper left. You travel northwest through abandoned watchposts, past forgotten roads that once roared with centurions and now host only moss and memory. Every ruin whispers. Every stone seems watched. You try not to imagine the unhum hiding just behind the trees, listening for cracks in your thoughts. By the third day, you notice something strange. The birds return. Sparrows dart past. A crow perches on a withered archway, staring at you like it recognizes your armor. Even the wind seems to breathe again. You ask Vero if this is a good sign. He says, "No. It means the hive's reach is fading." You glance at Fullman. "That bad?" He chuckles, his throat sounding like bees in a blender. "If you like forgetting how to tie your sandals, sure, very bad." He's not wrong. That night you dream of your mother, but she has no face, just a honeycomb mask, pulsing with wing beats. You wake screaming. You reach a cavern system carved into the cliffs of old Massalia, now a hollow shell of what was once a Roman trading jewel. The sea below crashes like applause, as if mocking the ruins. "This is where she sleeps," Vero says. You steel yourself. "Which she?" Lucilla the Stiller. You blink. That sounds restful. She's the only sleeper who never woke, even when summoned, not once. You descend the stairs. Each one feels colder, wetter, not from rain but from age. Memory condensation, Varro calls it. The deeper the hive, the more saturated it becomes with forgotten echoes. And sure enough, the walls start to whisper. Not in Latin, not even in words, just impressions. A young girl's scream as she's taken from her village, a soldier muttering, "To his fallen comrade," the crackle of a scroll burning in a temple fire. It's overwhelming. You clutch your ears, but it's inside you, not around you. You reach the final chamber, and there she is. Lucilla, floating in wax, literally suspended, upright, in a giant hexagonal pillar like a sacred insect in amber. Her eyes are open, but not blinking. Her mouth is closed, but smiling. One hand is raised mid-gesture. A farewell frozen forever. You exhale. She is terrifyingly beautiful, ageless, impossible, and very much aware of you. "I thought she never woke," you whisper. Varro nods. She didn't. You take a step closer. She tracks your movement. Barely. Just a tilt of the head, a soft shift in posture, but she doesn't move otherwise, doesn't speak. Just stares. Is she trapped? No, Fullman says quietly, his voice clearer than it's been all week. She's choosing stillness because the moment she moves, everything changes. You frown. Everything like what? The memories flood, the locks break, and she becomes a channel. Varro adds, for the entire hive. You look at her again, now with awe. She isn't sleeping, she's holding the dam. Historians still argue, Varro muses, whether she was the hive's creator, its guardian, or its first prisoner. You kneel before her, not because you're told to, but because you feel it. The weight, the pressure, the presence. Lucilla raises a single finger. Not fast, not dramatic, just deliberate. And suddenly you remember something that wasn't yours. You see a battlefield, not Roman, not even earthly. A plain made of shifting golden hexagons. Two armies, both human and not, clashing in perfect silence. In the sky, a swirling hive, vast enough to blot out stars. You speak, but it isn't your voice. It's hers. The unhum are here. The vision snaps away. Lucilla's eyes close. The wax hardens around her. Varro exhales. She gave you her warning. You rub your temples. I need answers, not hallucinations. Fullman speaks again, this time with lucidity that cuts like a blade. There's only one place left. One hive unspoiled. Deep beneath what they now call Britannia. You swallow. What's there? The Queen. You blink. Didn't we already meet the Queen? Varro shakes his head slowly. No, he says. You met the memory of one. The echo. But the true Queen, the one who built the hives, who foresaw the collapse of memory itself, is still below. Fullman adds, and she's dying. That night, you can't sleep. Not because of fear, but because you hear her voice, Lucilla's, still, whispering in the back of your mind, remember what they forgot. It echoes like a lullaby carved into stone. You wonder how much of you will remain after the final hive. If the person who returns will even know what a sandal is. You chuckle dryly. That counts as your joke quota. Then you hear another sound. Not laughter. Not buzzing, dripping wax, slow, steady, leaking from the ceiling like tears. You whisper into the dark, I'm not ready. But no one answers. Not even the hive. You're knee-deep in salt water. Not from rain or ocean spray, but from the flooded caverns of an abandoned Roman outpost halfway between Gaul and Britannia. Once, this place buzzed with imperial chatter and wine shipments. Now it echoes with the splash of your footsteps and the occasional unsettling hum from somewhere you can't place. Behind you, Fullman mutters hexameters to himself in perfect dactylic rhythm. Ahead, Varro carries a lit candle shaped like a wasp. It's not for light. It's for permission. Bees respect fire, he mutters. It mimics the sun, reminds them of obedience. You're not sure if that's real science or just Varro being Varro. But either way, the candle glows like a miniature solar god as you wade deeper into the tunnels. This is the final route to Britannia, not a ship, not a march, a subterranean breach, through forgotten corridors built before even Caesar's boats landed, a route that passes beneath memory itself. The walls begin to change, from stone to waxy limestone, then to pure honeycomb, blackened with age, brittle at the edges. At one point, you pass a long-dead Roman skeleton halfway encased in hardened honey. His shield bears the emblem of the Lost Legion, the 9th Hispana. You pause. They came this way? Varro nods solemnly. Some say they fled a massacre. Others claim they were chosen. Chosen for what? To become pollen? You shiver. That's not metaphor. Not with these people. You step past the body. Even now, bees crawl from the eye sockets, politely making way for your boot. By the 5th hour, you've stopped trying to understand time. There are no sunrises here. No moon, no stars, only hums and pulses. You sit to rest, pulling a cracked canteen from your bag. You sip. It tastes like figs and lightning. Memory wine, Varro says, raising a brow. Brave. You blink. You pack this. I also packed a pine cone. Doesn't mean I drink it. You cough, wiping your mouth, and then you remember something. A city with towers made of brass and glass, machines flying overhead, a language you can't name but understand. You stand in a crowd watching a golden queen descend a staircase made entirely of smoke. You raise your hand in salute. But it's not your hand. It's metallic. When you snap back, Fulman is staring. Do you like you've just grown feathers, you time-skipped, he says. What? You drank a seed. That wine was a primer, meant to open your hive mind. That means you're ready. Ready for what? To speak with the queen, the real one. A few hours later, though it might be days, you reach the final chamber. It's vast, hollow, the size of a coliseum but completely silent. No buzz, no wind, just one immense wax dome, pulsing slowly in the center like a sleeping heart. You see them, the others, cocooned around the dome like pearls embedded in honey. Romans, Gauls, even a few druidic figures, faces obscured by mossy hoods. They're alive somehow, breathing in rhythm, preserved, awaiting awakening. And in the center, her, the queen. But she's not what you expected. She is not human, at least not anymore. She rises slowly, her form unfolding like paper soaked in golden ink. You can make out human features, eyes, lips, fingers, but they are borrowed. Her limbs move like wax in a forge, melting and hardening with each gesture. Her voice, when it comes, is a hum that shapes itself into words inside your mind. Welcome, Keeper. You flinch. I'm not. You are. You would not have come this far if you weren't. She gestures toward the sleeping, cocooned figures. They held their branches. You hold the root. You don't understand. You almost do, but not fully. So you ask, what am I? The queen tilts her head. For a moment her face glitches, like melted memory reforming. You are the one who chose to forget everything, so you could remember what mattered. You shake your head. That's vague, that's infuriating. She smiles. You made a pact long ago to bury what you knew and find it again, piece by piece, only by journey, only by pain. You step forward, rage creeping up your throat. Why would anyone choose that? She hums softly. And you see it, the memory, the truth. You're standing in a field made of wax. A city burns in the distance, not from war, but from unmaking. Words vanish from books mid-sentence. Statues crumble into names no one recalls. Entire families look at each other and forget who they are. The unhummed swarm like shadows, flickering between shapes, feeding on omission. And you're their general, but you betray them. You siphon their memory fuel, turning it into wax, building the hive, constructing memory, preserving history. You were the queen's greatest soldier, until you realized what she'd become. A tyrant of memory. A hoarder of truth, so you made your own choice. To forget her, to start over. To walk the path of remembrance as a mortal. You collapse to your knees. The queen watches you kindly, as if none of this is personal. "You were my champion," she whispers. "But memory is not mercy." You gasp, trying to catch your breath. "What happens now?" She raises a single golden finger. "Now," she says, "you decide." And the chamber begins to shift. The sleeping warriors stir. Fullman vanishes, literally. A blink and he's gone. Varro falls backward into a wax puddle, sighing like a man finally finished with his shift. And you're offered a seat, a throne, shaped like a cracked helmet. "Yours. You can rule," the queen says, "or you can release." You ask, "Release what?" She smiles, "Everything." You don't sit. You just stare at that throne. Your throne, apparently. Shaped from the same battered helmet you abandoned in the swamps of Etruria, back when you still thought valor was a thing you could eat for breakfast. The queen waits. She doesn't tap her fingers. Doesn't blink, just waits. Patient, eternal, utterly terrifying. You step closer. The wax squeaks under your feet. "Let's say I do it," you murmur. "I take the throne. What happens?" "You become keeper of all memory," she answers with the offhand calm of someone offering a second dessert. You return to the center. You restore the pattern. The hive grows again, the unhum scatter. Sounds noble. Almost. Then you ask the second question, the important one. "And what do I lose?" She doesn't lie, not even a little. Your name, yourself, the boundaries between memory and personhood. You will become function, not individual. And you will never again taste a fig or laugh. You glance down at the seat. Somewhere inside, a bee buzzes. And then, as softly as water slipping down marble, she offers the other path. Or, she says, "You can melt it." You blink. "Melt the hive?" She nods once. "Release the sealed memories. Collapse the walls. Set every mind free, including the unhum." You take a breath. That's a terrible idea. And yet, it might be the only honest one. You look around, the chamber. The cocooned sleepers begin to stir one by one. The old Gallic chieftain. The Roman children frozen in prayer. The centurion with honey eyes. They aren't dead, they've been waiting. But for what? Your choice or your mistake? You don't know. Historians still argue whether the final queen ever gave a true choice, or whether she simply created the illusion of one to make surrender feel holy. You take another step forward. This time you're not trembling. "Let me ask a question." The queen tilts her head, curious. "Why a beehive?" The question startles even you. She actually smiles. Not the terrifying kind. Something softer. "It's orderly," she says. "Efficient. Beautiful. And above all," she lifts a hand, letting one golden bee land softly on her fingertip. Impossible without obedience. You nod slowly. You remember your own hive, back in Rome. The dreams. The buzzing. The long nights steeped in half-formed memory. And suddenly it's obvious you've already made your choice. You reach down, pick up the cracked wax helmet. It crumbles in your hand. The bees, thousands of them, burst upward like a silent fountain spiraling into the air, then disappearing into light. The throne collapses. The queen watches. No anger. Just a soft exhale. "I see," she says. Then she too begins to unravel. Not explode. Not vanish. Just loosen. Her limbs stretch into ribbons of smoke and sound. Her voice becomes 1,000 voices. All the ones you lost along the way. A soldier, a child, a lover, a teacher. A stranger at a market who once offered you shade. The queen becomes everyone. And then, nothing at all. The hive shudders. Cracks form in the floor. Not violent, just tired. Everything around you begins to melt, not destructively, more like surrendering. You step backward, watching as wax gives way to stone, and stone to dirt, and dirt to sky. The ceiling vanishes. You are beneath open air, and above you, stars. So many stars. You blink against the brightness. You haven't seen them. Weeks, maybe years, maybe centuries. Barrow stands beside you. Thought you were gone, you whisper. He shrugs. I'm your memory. I only leave when you forget me. You smirk, then you're doomed to hang around. He nods, grinning. Lucky me. Fullman reappears, hovering upside down above a nearby tree. He's humming again. But now, it's a song you know. A lullaby from your childhood. One your grandmother sang when the candles guttered out. You join in softly, off-key. And that's when you feel it, the world remembers everything. The melting hive didn't destroy memory. It gave it back. No more thrones. No more queens. Just people and stories. Some beautiful. Some broken. Some so absurd they make you snort aloud. Yes, that crocodile dung sunscreen is still your favorite. But they're real. Yours. Ours. You walk down from the ruined chamber. No fanfare, no dramatic exit. Just grass underfoot and the sound of wind finally free of humming. In your pocket, a single golden bee crawls out. You let it fly away. You don't need it anymore. You don't need the hive. You're whole. Well, almost. You're also hungry. And somewhere in Gaul, there's a bakery you remember for exactly one reason. The owner once tried to convince you that figs could be smoked like cigars. You never got to prove him wrong. Time to fix that. You emerge from the wilds of memory with shoes full of wax, hair tangled with wind, and a fig craving that borders on mythological. The land is quieter now. Not silent. No, never silent. But peaceful. You walk for hours without encountering another soul. Trees stretch overhead like lazy giants stretching after a nap. The birds don't startle anymore when you pass. They just observe, nodding slightly as if to say, "Ah." The memory keeper returns. A brook babbles beside you. The water glows faintly, gold in the shallows. Maybe pollen runoff, or maybe your eyes still haven't shaken the queen's touch. You're not sure which. You bend down, cup a handful of water, and drink. It tastes like time and endings. By the third day, you reach the village. It's not marked on any maps because, frankly, it doesn't want to be. A place out of time, tucked, behind a fold in the hills like a loose page in history's book. You walk in dirty, sleepless, humming softly. The baker recognizes you instantly. "Fig man," he says. You blink. It's been years. He shrugs, then points to his sign. Under his name, Octavius, the words "I still smoke figs" are carved with proud, irrational confidence. You sigh. "I'll take one." Smoked or rational? You raise an eyebrow. He chuckles and hands you both. You sit on a crate by the fire pit and bite into the smoked one first. It tastes like a joke told in bad weather. The rational one tastes like a memory restored. You don't cry. That would be too much, but you do sigh, deep, long. The kind that pushes dust out of your bones. Octavius joins you. "So," he says, "you destroy the hive?" You nod. He doesn't ask how you know each other. You get the feeling everyone remembers. You now, or at least enough to nod politely. That night you sleep in a hayloft. The stars wink above. You dream of bees, not threatening, just wandering. One lands on your cheek. Whispers, "Thank you." Another dances a figure 8 over your shoulder. You wake with a start, and a single word carved into the wood beside your head, "Keeper." Not a title, just a reminder. You pack up your things and keep walking, because the world is large, and history is leaking. In the weeks that follow, you become something of a traveling librarian. Not with books, those are rare and heavy, but with stories. You arrive in places just after they've forgotten who founded them. You help children recall their grandparents' lullabies. You show a retired soldier how to tie the knot his father taught him, using just your hands and a grin. You trade facts like bread. Did you know Caligula tried to make his horse a consul? Did you know Cleopatra spoke 9 languages and wrote treatises on cosmetics? Did you know Roman fire brigades used vinegar-soaked blankets to smother flames? The villagers don't care if the details are fuzzy. They laugh, they listen, they remember, and every once in a while, You see one of them stop mid-sentence, eyes flickering, and you know a bee just left their throat. Sometimes you wake up buzzing. Not loud, not painful, just a gentle reminder. You are not alone. You carry a wax medallion in your pocket, no symbol, just warmth. When the wind howls too sharply, you hold it. When the silence is too loud, you hum. When someone asks, "Who are you?" you smile and offer a story instead. You're no longer a general. You're not a weapon. You're something far more dangerous. You're a narrator. And the world is made of people willing to listen. Even now, even here, especially before sleep. You spend that winter in Delphi. Not the Delphi. Not the one with the oracle and the fumes and the whole Apollo speaks through riddles situation. This Delphi is smaller, quieter, a village clinging to a ruined temple like a barnacle on an old shipwreck full of stubborn people and even more stubborn cats. You arrive just before the first snow, and with you, as always, come the stories. The children gather around first. They're drawn by the smell of baked figs and the glint of your wax medallion, which they keep trying to steal. You let them once. The medallion disappears for exactly 9 minutes before a small boy named Leandro bursts back into your hut in tears. "It sang to me," he whispers. You grin. Of course it did. Leandro becomes your unofficial scribe. He doesn't know how to write, so he draws instead. Stick figures in togas, bees with little scrolls, queens made entirely of triangles. It's endearing and weirdly accurate. 1. Afternoon. An old woman finds you weaving a cord from goat hair and lavender stems. She sits beside you without asking, offers a chunk of stale bread, then says casually, like someone discussing the weather, "I used to speak to the hive." You pause mid-braid. "Excuse me?" She nods. "Years ago, when my husband died, the dreams started. I saw the queen in a hallway made of wings." You lean in. "What did she say?" The woman shrugs. "Nothing, just offered her hand." "And you didn't take it?" She chuckles. "Of course not. I'm Greek. We ask for receipts." You both laugh. But later, alone, you find yourself wondering how many others refused. How many chose not to be remembered in wax. Historians still argue whether the queen's reach ever truly extended across the entire empire, or whether the dreams were just fragments, crossed wires in the minds of the traumatized and brilliant. But here in Delphi, where memories linger, in the stones like perfume, it's hard not to believe. You walk the ruined temple steps. Your fingers trail over scorched inscriptions, half erased by time and wind. You find a bee symbol carved so deep it splits the marble. Someone else was here, long before you, maybe long before Rome. Fulman reappears by the spring. He's lounging in the water like a shrimp in a bathhouse. "You know what's funny?" he says. You reply. "No, well, yes, but also time." You raise an eyebrow. "It folds," he says, swirling the water. Not like parchment, more like a hive, layers, hexagons, each moment tucked into the next. You wait. He waits. Finally you say, "So?" "So," Fulman says, rising from the water and hovering at eye level, "you're going to need to go back. That stops you cold." "Back where?" "To the beginning," he points. You follow his gaze. There, across the village square, an old door has appeared in the air, not attached to a house. Just there. Wooden, unpainted. Bees crawling across its surface. You swallow, hard, because you know that door. It led you into the hive once before, but this time something's different. The bees aren't humming, they're whispering. You can't make out the words, just the tone, urgent, nervous, almost apologetic. You turn to Fulman. He shrugs. "Up to you, boss," and disappears because of course he does. You walk to the door, you hesitate, and then you knock. A soft pause. Then the door opens, and there's no queen, no wax. Just yourself. Younger, clean armor, no scars. Eyes wide and foolish and so eager. You stare at him, he stares at you, and he says, "I'm ready." You shake your head. You're not. But you place a hand on his shoulder, take a fig, walk away. His brow furrows. Why would I? And then you hand him something. Medallion. You'll remember. The door closes, and you are back in Delphi, alone again. But something shifted. The stick figure drawings now show two of you. One going forward, one staying behind. You sit down by the fire and bite into a fig. It tastes like hope. Your path bends west now, toward the coast where stories drift on salt air and fishermen speak in riddles. The sea always remembers, they say, but she never repeats herself. You like that. There's something honest in it. You arrive in a port, town so old its foundation stones are rumored to be Roman skulls. That's probably a joke, probably, but no one denies it outright. The town square hums with noise. Children play tag through olive stalls, sailors bargain with wild gestures, and an old woman sings softly beside a fountain. You pause beside her, and she stops mid-verse. "Ah," she says, without looking. "The man who let the bees go." You blink. Word travels fast. She chuckles. Faster than honey in a hot spoon. You sit beside her. She's kneading a lump of wax in her lap, soft, golden, flecked with lavender. It smells like home and endings. "You planning to build another hive?" you ask lightly. She shakes her head, only lighting candles for the ones who forget to forget. You watch her shape the wax, long, slow spirals like memory itself. Then she hands one to you. "For when you're tired," she says. You don't argue. That night, the fishermen tell you stories of Roman ships swallowed whole in storms, of a general who walked into the sea wearing bees like armor, of a queen who lives beneath the tide, humming lullabies through shells. "Do you believe it?" one asks. You shrug. "History's more like a net than a sword, catches what it can." They nod, satisfied. Then one of them pulls out a strange object, a lump of dark wax cracked and stamped with an unfamiliar emblem, half hive, half sun. "Found it in the belly of a fish," he says. "It hums sometimes." You take it gently, and yes, it hums, but not like the queen's hive. This is softer, familiar. You hold it to your ear. It sings, a soldier's voice, your own. That night you dream of the battlefield again, but differently this time. The spears are still there, but they're laid flat like a path. The armor is stacked neatly, unused. And the bees, they're planting flowers, someone's laughing. You realize it's you. Not the terrified, haunted version of yourself, but the child, before Rome, before duty, before the queen. That laugh, unburdened. You wake with tears and salt on your cheeks. The sea laps at your boots. You stay for several days. You light candles with the old woman. Share songs with the children. Teach the fishermen the hums that chase off nightmares. And every night someone hands you a story, folded into cloth, whittled into wood, painted on ceramic tiles, carved into driftwood. They don't ask you to take them. They trust you to carry them, and you do. You leave quietly, early one morning. No fanfare, just the soft clink of a wax candle in your pouch and the sound of bees in the cliffs. As you walk along the shore, a group of school children pass you, each wearing a tiny wax pendant around their necks. One of them stops and says, "My brother said you fought a queen made of memory." You kneel. Your brother's dramatic, she was mostly bees. He giggles, then runs to catch up. You hum. The waves hum back. You keep walking, along the edge of salt and land, where memory becomes legend and legend becomes sleep. The final stretch is quiet. You walk through low grass and ruined outposts, through fields where armies once clashed, and now only sheep graze with supreme indifference. Everything feels lighter out here, as if even the air has started letting go. The burden of memory doesn't vanish, it just shifts, softer, easier to carry. A boy on a donkey passes you, barefoot and singing something that sounds suspiciously like the bee waltz Fullman used to hum. You don't stop him, let it spread. A road marker half buried in vines reads Melatonia. You haven't seen that name since before the war. The beehive was built near here, hidden among vineyards and olive groves. Not that any of that's left. But your feet remember. So do your dreams. You camp under the stars, the medallion warm in your hand, and wake with wax between your fingers and a single bee resting in your palm. It doesn't sting. It just sits, as if waiting. You nod. It flies off. The ruins of the beehive are hard to spot. Time has worked its slow alchemy, stone to moss, wall to hill, door to myth. But you find it. The stones are half swallowed by earth. The scent of old honey lingers. You crouch low, tracing the pattern in the earth. Spirals, always spirals. A fragment of the wax structure still clings to one stone, blackened, crumbling, but intact. You kneel before it, and you don't speak. You hum. And after a moment, the stone hums back. You place the cracked wax seal from the fisherman's fish on the ground. It melts instantly, not with heat, but with recognition. From beneath the soil, hundreds of tiny filaments begin to glow. Memories, stored and forgotten. Waking. You step back. The hive is not coming back. That's not what this is. This is closure. The queen is gone. But the echoes still want to say goodbye. A wind stirs, petals blow across the field. The bees don't return, but their stories do. That night, you sit on the same hill where the queen once stood. You feel lighter. You feel small in the good way, the same way a candle feels beside the stars. Still burning, still here. A farmer approaches you at dusk, asks, "Are you the one with the stories?" You nod. He smiles. "We've got a boy who won't sleep without one." He says the bees told him you'd come. You smile back and follow. Inside a small cottage, you sit at the child's bedside. He clutches a little wax figure. One of Leandro's drawings come to life. Triangle queen. Long arms. Silly grin. "Can you tell me the one about the Roman general who slept in a beehive?" The boy asks. You pause, then begin. The candle flickers low. The child yawns. You end the story right before the final battle, just as the bees begin to dance. He whispers, "Did they win?" You lean close. "They remembered," you say. "And that's better." The boy smiles, eyes half shut. As you rise to leave, he grabs your hand. "Will you come back?" You nod once, but you both know it doesn't matter. He'll remember. Outside, the wind carries the scent of time and sleep. You look up. The stars shimmer, bees of light. Somewhere in the fields, a song rises, soft and low, sung by someone you once were, or might still be. And just like that, it's done. You exhale. You release the story. You walk away. You walk the rest of the way without speaking. The road feels smooth beneath your feet, the kind of path worn not by armies but by memory. A softer history stitched together by footsteps and songs. In the distance, fireflies rise. At first they look like sparks, but they dance slowly in patterns you almost recognize. You don't try to name them. Some things are best left unnamed, especially when the night is this still. You sit down in the grass. The world hums around. You not the loud buzz of a hive in full command, but a gentler sound, like wind brushing the tops of tall wheat, or a lullaby sung through walls. The stars shift above. You watch one trail across the sky and disappear behind a hill. Somewhere, a door closes, and another opens. You smile, because you know now. Even if the queen is gone, and the wax has cooled, her lesson lingers. Not power, not control, but presence. A promise whispered gently across centuries. "Remember me." And you do. You lie back. Let your breathing slow. Let the tension slide from your shoulders. The night is long and kind and full of story. You're safe here. You're home here. You're held in the hush between endings and beginnings. The candle burns low, your eyes close, and far, far away the last bee returns to the hive. End of script. Sweet dreams.